and welcome back to Bookish Theories. In today's video, we'd like to talk about ENHYPEN's Dark Blood trailer, focusing on a little breakdown of the video to see what it can tell us about the concept and story of this comeback, as well as its connections to their previous work. Now, with the release of Dark Blood around the corner, ENHYPEN kicked off pre-promotions with a cinematic trailer titled Bite Me. According to the press release, the album will tell a story of sacrifice, love and regret, and as we'll see in a second, the video introduces us to this concept with a tragic tale of love and death. Written and directed by Yu Kwang-gong, the video portrays a story created with Dark Moon the Blood Altar. The fact that it's created with implies that Dark Blood will borrow some elements from Dark Moon while at the same time also standing independently from the canon. Despite of this, please be aware that this video might contain some spoilers because there are some similarities and I need to point them out. In Dark Blood, for instance, the members are still vampires with special powers, and the girl that we see in the video is supposedly still Sua, or at the very least a different iteration of the character that appears in the Blood Altar. In that story, Sua is the reincarnation of a lost princess with divine powers, while ENHYPEN are vampire knights in charge of protecting her from the enemies that want her abilities. Dark Blood features very similar elements, but these elements are reworked into a new narrative that fits the concept of the album itself. The three versions called Full, Half and New, for instance, introduce this story as the downfall of an ill-fated individual blinded by power and cursed by love. While on a general level all members embody this concept, in the video this figure is obviously portrayed by Sunghoon, who this time around takes on the role of the protagonist as well as the love interest of this version of Sua. In Full, for instance, the story begins with him believing he could protect his lover if only he had the power. He sees a future where they could be complete, but right from the beginning we get the sense that this is not entirely the case. The tragic protagonist thought that everything was his, but in the mood board it's revealed that he got intoxicated by his own might. Blinded by his own mystical strength, the hero strayed away from his lover's light, and time passed as he continued on. In the premise, the man is oblivious to the hold that this illusion has on him. He still doesn't understand how corrupted he is becoming, so over time he becomes a cursed being, unable to die but condemned to wander. In the off version, it's explained that the protagonist gets erased by this consuming love, and as he suffers from it, he plunges into a terrifying darkness that is worse than hell. The new version hints at the final resolution of this struggle, but this resolution is far from a happy ending. The album narration explains that they are connected by blood. The mark on their neck is a sign of their shared destiny, and he is willing to give up his power and eternity as long as he can protect her. Now in the video, this tragedy about power, love and loss is portrayed with the story of a dark knight sacrificing everything to protect the woman he cannot help but love. At the beginning, the video opens with a short prologue introducing us to the themes of this tragic story. As we see the girl trapped in the car, a camera pans to a child sitting on top of it. While holding a black candle, he explains that this is a story about pride and oblivion. It's about love, sacrifice, fate, and those who wish to escape it have to remember the words "bite me." When the child blows the candle out, we immediately cut to Hee-sung, who just woke up from a prophetic nightmare. In Dark Moon, his character Haley has the power of telepathy, so while he cannot see the future, he's actually able to see the past and present of the people surrounding him. Like in that story, Haley has a similar power in Dark Blood, because in his dream he sees Sua being taken by Solon, which in turn is none other than Sunghoon's character. If in Dark Moon it's Haley the love interest and most loyal knight, in Dark Blood it's Solon the one taking over his role. He has taken the girl because he wants to protect her, but this action will have unspeakable consequences for everybody involved. As soon as he wakes up, Haley rushes to the others, and when he gets to his destination, the members are sitting in a circle, seemingly already aware of what their brother just did. Haley's arrival marks the beginning of their intervention, so as soon as he joins them, the others stand up, turn around, and then stretch an arm towards the center of the circle. This is a way for them to decide which member will go after the runaways. As 5 of them drop their hand, the 6th one raises it. That's Jaka, Jungwon's character, who just lost the game, and therefore has been chosen by fate as the first one to go after Solon and Sua. As he sits back down and sulks, his brothers comfort him one by one. Then Jungwon's face lights up, and the members disappear. Now this scene is actually very interesting, because it can actually be interpreted in a couple of different ways. On one hand, the light might symbolize that Jungwon is comforted by his brothers and is now ready to go. On the other, however, the light followed by the boys' disappearance almost makes it seem like the members merged into one. This concept is also reinforced later on, where we see Jungwon's body turning into Nikki and Nikki turning into Jay. This is a creative choice meant to show that they're all united on the same front and sharing the same cause. They all want to find their brother, and Jacka is the first one to try. As we see Solon riding off with Sua on a black horse, Jacka catches up to them riding a red motorbike. In Dark Moon, Jacka not only has the power of speed, but is also able to use echolocation, which is a power that he often uses to find Sua when she's in trouble. In Dark Blood, he seems to have a similar ability, thus explaining how he found them that quickly. As soon as he blocks the way, Solon dismounts the horse by turning into a colony of bats. The two brothers look at each other, then without saying a word, they start fighting to the death as Sua watches from afar. After a quick but violent confrontation, Solon eventually slays Jacka with a sword. Jacka's death marks the point of no return here. There's no going back from this now, so Solon and Sua move on to find refuge. In their hideout, Sua cries over Jacka's death, so Solon tries his best to make her smile. He caresses her head, makes funny faces, and he even makes the hand shadow of a wolf, which is a reference to him being half vampire and half werewolf. Despite of his efforts, however, Sua keeps crying overcome by guilt. She blames herself because none of this would be happening if she were stronger, and this kind of sheds light to the inciting incident of this entire situation. In the narration, Songun explains that everything became clearer the moment those words came to mind like a spell. It is only right that all power and authority go back to Sua, which is why he made the difficult decisions that led him to this point. Now, Solon's motivations here, I think, are very much connected to some of the events that take place in Dark Moon, because in that story, the source of the Knight's powers is indeed Sua herself. The Seven Knights became the powerful vampires they are not only because they were given the blood of the princess, but also because she chose to share her powers with them as a form of protection. She is not only their princess, she is their sire, and she's also their protector as much as they are hers. As the new concept tells us, they are connected by blood, so even if Dark Moon and Dark Blood might be different, I think that this origin story might actually be the same. In the trailer, Solon runs away with Sua because he thinks that the right thing to do is to give her powers back, but in this version of events, this is a sacrifice that has deadly consequences for all of them. Blinded by pride, he made a decision for the others as much as for himself, which would actually explain why in the video his brothers are trying to stop him. After the fall of Jacka, it's now the turn of Nikki's character Noah. Solon and Noah confront each other in an epic sword fight in the snowy woods. As Sua runs away and face plants into the snow, the two of them fight each other with their weapons. Their fight brings them to an open field where Noah successfully breaks Solon's sword, but in turn, Solon makes Noah lose one of his weapons. As Noah retaliates and is about to finish him, however, Solon is faster and ends up killing him first. This is the moment Nikki turns into Jay. In Dark Moon, his character Ian has super strength, and in Dark Blood he has the very same power, because we see that he's strong enough to block Solon's attack. Before he can do anything, Ian is joined by Gino and Shion, who are respectively Jake and Sonu's characters. As the two of them hold him down, off-screen, Ian slashes him with his own sword, thus ending his rebellion with an execution. In the video, it's implied that Ian, Gino and Shion leave Solon for dead, because right after we see them finding Sua running in the woods. Without breaking a sweat, Ian blocks her escape and grabs her. Sua tries to break free, but Ian is the strongest of them all, so she fails in this attempt. In a surprising turn of events, however, Sua turns around and bites his neck. After drinking his blood, she then feeds on both Gino and Shion, supposedly regaining the powers that were hers to begin with. With Jacka and Noah killed by Solon, and Gino, Ian and Shion drank by Sua, the only one left is Ailey, who in turn is the only one who didn't actively participate in the fight. So far it's unclear if he's still alive or if he confronted them off screen, but either way it doesn't really matter at this point. The fight is over, and as Jay, Jake and Sonu lay dead in the snow, Sua goes back to find Solon, who barely survived the attack. As the two of them escape on foot, Songun's narration further explains his motivations. After committing many mistakes and taking stupid decisions, he finally realized that everything started because of her. She's the one who made him, and after giving everything he could, it's finally time to go back to her and finally return all the power and authority she gave him. About to succumb to his injuries, Solon is unable to continue on, so him and Sua stop by the river as the sunrise approaches. Despite all the bloodshed, he kept his promise and gave everything, so his mission was successful even if at the biggest possible cost. He not only gave his love, loyalty and protection, he sacrificed his brothers for her, and now the only thing left for him to give is none other than himself. As the two of them hug, Solon leans over and tells her to bite him. As the child foreshadowed at the beginning, those two words free him from the twisted fate he suffered until now. Returning the powers to Sua kills him, yes, but also sets him free from the eternal wandering he was cursed to endure. As painful as it is, this is the last sacrifice, and Sua understands that it must be done. She bids him farewell, calls him my love, and Solon dies in the arms of his loved one, knowing to be loved in return. In the epilogue, we see Sua on a swing smiling happily. The night's sacrifice restored their powers, and even if she doesn't need them anymore, their devotion stays the same. She is the sun that lifted their darkness, so they vow to wait for her for eternity even if her light burns them. Now this ending is actually very telling here, because these lines reference some of ENHYPEN's previous songs. Back in Given and Taken, for instance, the boys woke up on day one as the light of the new sun burned them and blinded them. Despite of that, they chose to dive into the red sun anyway, because their attraction to it was just too difficult to resist. In Fever, it was revealed that their sun was none other than the entity giving them the fever, awakening their new senses, and in the lore, this individual was embodied by none other than Sua herself. Whether we are talking about Dark Moon or Dark Blood, she's always the light in the darkness. She is their new sun, who brightens their path but also burns them while doing so. After all, their eternal existence is both a blessing and a curse, and they are always divided between being tamed by the thirst or dash away from it altogether. In many respects, Dark Blood offers a new story, but as new as it is, it also shares many elements with their past. In Given and Taken, for instance, Sungun's fate was already written in blood, and Dark Blood is a story of love, sacrifice and fate they can only escape if they get beaten. Jungwon died in the sun the same way Sungun does in Bite Me, and he gets a nosebleed like Sua does in the video. Fever told us who is their son, but it also foreshadowed the confrontation between Sungun and Nikki. The red background was also featured in the Japanese Given and Taken and Tamed and Dashed, and in Let Me In we saw Sungun playing around with a cape like the one from Bite Me. Back in that video, which by the way is still very mysterious even after knowing the story, there was also an interesting scene involving Sungun. At the very beginning, the camera zooms in on his face as he says something in reverse. That scene foreshadowed the line "I'll give you my blood," and it's the same thing that he does in Bite Me. In the story, Solon gives her his blood, and in a similar way, the video ends with his voice in the background saying something in reverse. Now, since it's in Korean and in reverse, so far I wasn't able to translate it, so if you guys know what it says, please drop it in the comments and share it with the class. In the meantime, however, I would also like to point out one last detail, which is the way the song Foreshadow actually foreshadowed the arrival of Dark Blood. Back then, ENHYPEN destroyed the line they were forced to walk and created a manifesto proclaiming their intention to find a perfect future. In order to get there, however, the boys first need to overcome a shadow that fell in front of their eyes no matter where the sun was. Their perfect future is waiting for them beyond this abyss, and in the song, this shadow world is described as cold, painful, and a little lonely. Now, given what we saw until now, Dark Blood fits this description very well. In Bite Me, we see that the final showdown takes place in the snow, so it's as cold as it can get. It's obviously painful because everyone suffers and meets a violent end, and if you think about it, it's also a little lonely, not only because Solon stands alone against the others, but also because by the end, Sua herself is left alone. This could mean that Dark Blood represents the shadow world that the ENHYPEN must overcome before getting to their future perfect. Their one true ending is ahead of them, but in order to reach it, they first need to dive into the shadow and embrace it. To see what will happen then, we'll have to wait and see, but in the meantime, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please think about liking and subscribing. As always, thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye bye!